tubes. And it's setting up our meeting. Setting up the meeting. Setting up, and we are live. Hey, everybody, you are watching and listening to the We Are Rizin podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I am joined once again by my debonair co-host, Jay Christian Gary from Focus Fights.
What's good, y'all? And for those watching in Houston, happy 713 Day. But we're not here to talk about that, damn it. We're here to talk about the legacy and career of probably one of the greatest pancrase Shudo one of the greatest pancrase and Shudo fighters to ever grace the lighter weight classes. And that would be Shintaro Ishiwatari, the former bantamweight king, the pancrase champion, and more recently, over the last 7 fights of his career, Rizin Fighting Federation veteran. And here to talk about that with us, obviously myself, Jay Christian Gary, and Andrew Benjamin out of New York City, is the Polish commentator for Infusion Kickboxing and Cage Fighting, the one and only Daniel Dziubicki.
Dziubicki. I know it's difficult for foreigners, but it sounds like this. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. But yeah, Daniel Dziubicki.
Better.
Still, though, what are your fondest memories about Shintaro Ishiwatari's career? Because I know that you follow a lot of Japanese MMA, even though you live all the way out in the middle of Europe.
I've always knew that Ishiwatari is a decent fighter. He is an entertaining fighter. He is well achieved and experienced during his start of rising career. He at the time he was Pancras bantamweight champ. He was representing Pancras, but the brightest thing from the past connected with Ishiwatari was his fight with Kevin Petchy, that massive KO by a right hook. Why? Because I was at the venue in Saitama, and even I filmed to my Japanese vlog from my first Japanese trip. I filmed the screen of with the replay of the knockout on Kevin Petchy. And there was some kind of sign that you should pay more attention for this guy because he's really decent, and that's how it started. I was rooting for him in his next fights, so this was the first experience which was that strong,
And I know that we're going to get down into it. Obviously, we're going to talk about this more as we go along on this retrospective. But when it came down to the 2 fights that he had with Kyoji Horiguchi, obviously the Ballet Tudo Japan bout where he lost via TKO on June 22nd, 2013, and the second Horiguchi fight, which was the Rizin Grand Prix Finals in 2017. Do you think that he could have had a fighting chance in either one of those bouts had he, just stuck and move, or whatever he would have done in order to survive those 2 bouts?
You know what? I saw that first fight. I was rewatching today, and I would like to say that there was 2 completely different fights with different enclosures, different time slots, and different game plans by Ishiwatari for this fight. As we know, he was always very good wrestler, and during the first fight he wanted to utilize his wrestling skills, and he was quite successful in it, because he was keeping Horiguchi on the ground for a long time. But it's not a secret that Cage promotes wrestling style of fighting. And during the first fight, he was quite successful on the ground, but there was lots of scrambles, lots of action changes, but it was really entertaining. But the second fight was in the ring, was later, when Horiguchi was a world big star, and he was after the UFC, and it was, as I said, on the ring. And I think lots of things has changed, because during their second clash, he wanted to just maintain distance and just to beat Horiguchi by single punches or short combinations. But Horiguchi was even bigger, much bigger than a couple years earlier.
I think what's great about that first fight, and I watched that fight as well, and rewatched the one in Rizin. He almost had him beat in the first round, if you remember that, Daniel. Remember, he had the rear naked choke, and I think if it was anybody else besides Horiguchi, I think they would have been done for. But Horiguchi doesn't give up even when he's when he's in a precarious position like that. So. And by the way, also just to clarify as well, this is when Horiguchi was at Crazy B, and almost looked exactly like Kid Yamamoto. He had the same exact hair, by the way, as I'm sure as a tribute to his coach. But yeah, that it, like, and the fight lasted almost went all 5 rounds. But there were pockets in that fight where Ishiwatari looked pretty dominant over Horiguchi. But just Horiguchi was faster. I think Ishiwatari kind of was getting tired by the end. I'll say this though, this is what I liked about Horiguchi, and if you wanted to put it like in a more modern context, we just saw us with the UFC 264 with Sean O'Malley and Chris Motino, was that Ishiwatari always was coming forward, no matter what. He could be losing, he could be knocked down on his feet, but he was always moving forward. And you bring up the Pecci fight. Remember when he knocked him down? He was about to run in and soccer kick him. And I was like, listen, there are so many fighters who would probably just like walked off, raise their hand, I got the win, but not Ishiwatari. What I like about Ishiwatari is that the fight's not over until the bell rings or until the referee stops. And
go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's why what I became enamored by him as a fighter is that the fight doesn't end until either it's not that he's not deciding when to end the fight, it's when the referee or the bell rings. And I like that. I like that aggressiveness in a fighter. I like seeing a fighter who's not gonna just just go by his own, oh, the guy's knocked out, you know what, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna do my job and continue on, because we see there have been many times where fighters have, they walk off of the KO. They think they walk off the KO. I don't know if this happened in his career and maybe why he does it, but yeah, we've seen it. We're like, oh, someone walks off and then the referee says, nope, still continue. Mm-hmm. I liked him always coming forward. I liked he was always aggressive. He rarely ever took like really, even when he was wrestling, even when he was grappling, wrestling, he was still maintain position, trying to finish the fight. And that's what I like about him. But sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
There was 2 interesting moments in their first clash, because at the very beginning of the fight, Horiguchi got dropped, and Ishiwatari took his back and tried to choke him out. There was first thing that should totally change the timeline, and in the, I don't know, some later moment in this fight, Horiguchi had fallen. I don't know, he lost the balance and he was on the ground, and Ishiwatari wanted to soccer kick him, but he stopped his leg in the critical moment.
Okay, because I don't think Shuto allowed soccer kick or
No, 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 no,
VTJ. Sorry, VTJ did.
no, no. It was full unified rules,
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
but Pancras allowed at the time.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's even an action of Ishiwatari from Ishiwatari's fight in his highlight that he is soccer kicking some guy in Pancras. I can't remember which was the fight, but I remember that.
Well, you know,
I think when it came down to that soccer kick, that was Nobulo Yoshitake Pancras.
Oh yeah.
I think also, you know, while we all love soccer kicks, we all love, you know, that's like the best way to end a fight. I think he might have the most unique slam knockout I've ever seen. Do you know the one I'm talking about, Daniel?
Mm.
Against Kazuhiro Ito. It was the part of shooting disco. The when Shuto was running those shows.
Oh yeah, I saw that action. Yeah. Definitely great action.
Where Ito had him in an armbar. And
Yeah.
so he picks him up. Ishtar picks him up. He doesn't slam him, you know, rampage style. What he
Yes.
does is, so it's like a belly down armbar. He slams him face down on the canvas. I think that is probably the most brutal knockout I've ever seen. Since probably the Andrade Namajunas one is maybe
Oh yeah.
very, very close. But like up until seeing that, like that is definitely got to be like top 10 most brutal slam KOs of all time.
I think so. The great action.
What's interesting, you know, like many Japanese fighters in his career, you know, again, you know, the reason why we're talking about it is because he did recently announce his retirement on a Rise's Confessions video. We're presuming that it's true. You know, I see no reason why he would go back on it. But interestingly enough, the beginning of his career, he had a loss and a draw, which is not too uncommon. Is that correct, Daniel? Many fighters in Japanese MMA have started their careers on draws or even losses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. But you know, there's some different culture in a judging fight. It's not only in MMA. In kickboxing, you have it as well. You know, in the Western world, when you are scoring the fight, you have to choose the winner, no matter what. It's really rare that you don't have a winner. There's a draw. Maybe if there's for example, kickboxing fight and the first round is a 10-8 and the next two rounds are 9-10, so it's a draw mathematic. But but in Japan you have lots of you know, tied rounds and draws in the records of both of MMA fighters and kickboxers.
Also, the other big thing is that, you know, particularly in Shudo, they used to just do 2 rounds. One guy wins one round, one guy wins the other round. Boom, draw. Deep also used to still does 2 rounds as well, and a lot of times there's still draws. We still see draws to this day. Rise in kickboxing matches, which just happened recently. So, you know, I know it's very, you know, it's so uncommon to see a draw in Western MMA. But like in Japanese MMA, it's
commonplace basically, even though they don't happen in Rizin.
Oh no, they do happen in Rizin, Christian.
I mean, I'm saying they don't happen in Rizin MMA bouts, not just kickboxing bouts.
Gotcha. I think one of the fights though that I think there's really 2 fights though that we can talk about that really put Shintaro Ishiwatari on the map. And actually one is a loss and one's a win. And Daniel, being that you were watching Sengoku this year, let's talk about the fight that he had with Korean Zombie back in 2009, by the way. That's how long he's been a fighter. Think about that. 2009. Pride's already gone. So this is Sengoku is on the front. So Daniel, so tell us your thoughts when you rewatched this fight against the Korean Zombie, now in the UFC, by the way.
Yeah. First and foremost, the fight was in featherweight, so not Ishiwatari's actual weight class. But he faced the Korean Zombie, and this was a really wide fight, lots of brawls. And Ishiwatari had one disadvantage in his fighting style when we saw it in his last fight, for example, with against Naoki Inoue. He caught his opponent. His opponent was wobbled, but he wanted to finish fight now and as full for all costs. And he got caught, and then he lost. In the Chan Sung Jung fight, he lost his back and he got choked out from what I remember. Yes, this was a rear naked choke.
Yes, and so you watched a bunch of Sengoku. So was this tournament? Did Korean Zombie, did he go on to win the tournament?
Mm, no, it was not a tournament fight.
Oh, it's not a tournament fight. Okay.
But sorry, not no 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 sorry. It's I'm not sure it was Sengoku 7. No, it was a I think it was the tournament fight. It was a first round opening round because there was two tournaments in Japan at that time, and there was Dreams featherweight tournament and Sengoku's featherweight tournament.
I know off air we were talking about another fight that he had in Son Goku against Tayo Nakahara, who actually had his debut in Rizin a while ago, losing to Kazuma Kuramoto. But you said you watched that fight and you said that you had a problem with the judging. And yeah, can you just talk about, give us a little backstory history on the judging for those that may not be familiar with how Sengoku is judging fights?
Yes, because first and foremost, Sengoku scored the fights round by round as in the Western MMA, so 10-point must system. But as we said before, Japanese judges have some kind of habit to score the fights as a draw. And in Sengoku, there was a more problem because they had some bizarre criteria, and there was lots of problematic decisions lots of problematic decisions in the end of the fights. And that fight, it was a final 8 fight. No, it was a final 4 fight. It was a semi-final fight with Tayo Nakahara. It was a bantamweight tournament, and in the first round, Ishiwatari dropped him twice. The same technique that he knocked out Kevin Petchy. So right hook. What is more interesting because he's a southpaw fighter, so his weaker punch is right punch. But he dropped the Tayo Nakahara twice. Yes, in fact, he was in trouble on the ground because there was 2 attempts of knee bar by Nakahara, and the second round was mainly stand up. I think it could be more difficult to score for the judges if this would be as a whole, because he earned a yellow card because of 2 fouls, eye poke, and then nut shot. But at the end of the day, we received the decision, and the scorings was really interesting because the first judge scored 2018 for Ishiwatari, so 10-9, 10-9, easy. The second judge scored 19-19, so one round for Ishiwatari, one for Nakahara, and the last judge scored this bout as a 20-20, so two tied rounds. And in Sengoku, if there was a draw, they had to choose the winner. And the both judges who scored the fight as a draw picked Nakahara. I don't know why. I don't know why there was such differences between the point of view of first judge and the second and third. It's really weird, and it was not the first time when there was problems with scoring for in at the Sengoku events. Moreover, I would like to see that if you score the fight as a draw and you have to pick the winner anyway, so it's like a kind of a mix of 10-point must system with a whole fight scoring system.
I'm surprised they didn't do like an immediate rematch, you know, because they did that when he lost to Brookins. They did an immediate rematch in Pancras, and usually when there's a decision that's like that close, or yeah, it sounds like usually a lot of times they'll just go right to a immediate rematch, especially in Japan. Japan does a lot of rematches, so I'm surprised that was not done like again. So who knows why? Um, he I think the other fight that I also want to talk about that pre-Ryzen was his fight, I guess you'd call it a super fight at the time, was against Kal Uno for Shuto round 10. um and I remember hearing about that fight before because I loved Kal Uno from UFC. He was always like one of my underrated favorites. I don't think he gets enough love from the MMA world. Unfortunately, I think people just remember him for getting knocked out by BJ Penn, and that's all he was like. That's his entire.
Wait a minute. Don't people also remember for the draw? Don't people also remember Kyle Uno for the draw he had with BJ Penn?
Yeah, but you don't see them in the highlights for UFC's whenever they like do the BJ Penn highlights. They're not going to show the draw. They're going to show the 10-second knockout, the jumping knee knockout.
Ah, shit. Fuck those people. But yeah, people only remember Kyle Uno for his UFC run, is what you're saying. They don't remember him much for this match that he had with Ishiwatari, correct?
I had to borrow a friend's UFC fight pass thing just to find this fight. I literally could not find it anywhere. It was like it was I had to go on UFC Fight Pass watching. You actually see most of his fights on the UFC Fight Pass since they were for Shuto and Pancras. So if you want to see any of Ishitari's fights, that's where you can see almost all of them. But Daniel, tell for the Kyle Uno fight, tell us what you thought of this fight when you saw it, especially given in hindsight, where Ishitari I guess went after where his career went after this fight, and then I'd also just take into account that Kyle Uno was Shuto's golden boy at the time.
To be honest, I did not see it because I don't have a UFC Fight Pass.
Okay.
Yeah, but for what I wanted to add for Sengoku topic, because Ishiwatari has a fight between Chan Sung Jung fight in the featherweight Grand Prix and the bantamweight Grand Prix. It was at the SRC Asia Volume 1. And if someone watches us or will watch the real life, I would like to know if someone has the footage of it, because I haven't seen it, and I'm not sure if there's any footage of the event.
I'm surprised that there isn't already footage of it. I figured there'd be something of it like available on the internet or something.
Yeah, it was different times because right now we should receive a pay-per-view. Right.
Yeah.
At that time, we only relied on the TV rips.
Yeah,
So,
I gotcha. So I'll just talk about the Kyle Uno fight. Ishitari defeated Kyle Uno by decision, dominated him for all 3 rounds in this fight, and it was a fascinating fight because he was Pancreas bantamweight champion at the time. I don't believe I don't think Kawuno was was a Shuto champion at the time. I think he was just in Shuto, but nonetheless he was Shuto's most well known name, I would say, at the time. And I guess it is the definition of a super fight, and just seeing Ishitari just not afraid to, you know, you know what you're gonna get with Kauno when you fight him. Kauno is gonna grapple you. He's gonna try to bring you down to the ground. But Ishitari was the way he fought this fight was so smart. He knew that Kauno's striking is more or less not good, and basically just mowed him down on standing up, and was able to take him down several times without even worrying about the grappling. And we'll talk about the same thing kind of happened with the Okazaki fight, is that Ishitari was an underrated grappler. I don't think he got a lot. He doesn't have the other funny thing is that if you look at his record, there's not a lot of finishes, but he was so good at everything that almost like you forgot how good he was at finishing fights when he did, if that makes any sense.
You know, I think that the good example of mixing it up, mixing the skills of Ishiwatari was in his fight with Ulka, especially during the finishing action, because he caught Ulka by his right hook, and then Ulka wanted to take him to the ground. He made a sprawl, and then he outgrappled Ulka and he choked him out. So great showcase of well-rounded skills.
Oh, Code May Day. Thank you for coming to the chat. Says that Ishitari went up to 155 for the Uno fight. Okay, so he's fought at 3 weight classes. So he's fought at bantamweight, he's fought at featherweight, and he fought at lightweight. Very uncommon, and also not to mention he was successful in lightweight. Defeating Kawuno. I really recommend that fight. It's an amazing fight. Crowd's absolutely amazing. If you have UFC Fight Pass, watch it. If not, borrow your friends. Do what I do. Or
I would do it.
Go through the or if not, I don't know. I don't know how else there is to watch. I'll say this. Shuto really, they're good at hiding their fights. They know how to hide their fights from YouTube and from other sources, I'll say. So here's the thing I also want to ask as well, Daniel, and I think Christian, you could also answer this as well before we get into Ishitari's rising career. He only fought in Japan his entire career. He never fought outside Japan, never fought in Korea, China, Russia. His entire career, pro career, was in MMA was in Japan. Do you think at all that he was a UFC caliber fighter? I'll start with you, Daniel. Do you think that he could have been a fighter for UFC?
I would like to think a couple of seconds, but there was a time in, I don't know, 2009, 2010, when a couple of fighters from Sengoku migrated to the WEC, for example, Chan Sung Jung. And then there was dark times of JMMA when the dream almost disappeared in 2012 and completely went into, I don't know, maybe went into the bankruptcy in 2013. And there was a couple of years when there was completely no major organizations in Japan. We can call like this, there was a VTJ, but VTJ was something like between Shuto and, for example, Sengoku. It was not that big. But by the way, I think that was a good time for lots of Japanese fighters, that 2-3 years, especially when we consider that UFC was back in Japan. It was in 2014 or 13, UFC 144. But they signed lots of Japanese fighters, but not Ishiwatari. They did even some kind of TUF spin-off in Japan, but everything was dependent on the connections, managers, and stuff like this. Ishiwatari was not too effective outside the cage or the ring, but I think he would. I'm not sure if he would be a champ in the WC or UFC, but I think he would be a very entertaining fighter. But this is a very good point about his fight history, because Japanese fighters, majority of Japanese fighters had problems with fighting abroad, fighting outside Japan. I saw some big, maybe not article, but big post. I think it was on the Sherlock forums. Why Japanese can't succeed abroad? And there was lots of good points with things which are certain, like problems with adjusting to the time zone. They are, and mentally they are more hermetic than the Western people. They have more problems with adjusting overly to the different environments. The Horiguchi was a bit something. Horiguchi and Okami was examples that it's possible to do it. I don't remember where Okami was training during his prime time, but as we all know, Horiguchi went from the Japan to the American top team, and he was living in the US. So it's a bit different thing. It's a different case totally.
Mm-hmm. No, I probably the two most successful Japanese fighters of all time, Japanese-born fighters of all time, certainly would have to be either Sakuraba or Horiguchi in UFC. And even though Horiguchi had a ceiling, I still think that that DJ beats him 100 times out of 100. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, if you saw that when he made the change, when he came over to do his training in America, there he was clear, and he still does his training in America, by the way, as well. So clearly there is something there, and I'm pretty sure that the travel sucks. There is no direct flights from Japan to, let's say, I don't know, if you're fighting on the East Coast. Actually, I should also point out, actually, Kodame Day says Ishiwatari was more well-rounded than Mizugaki and Sasaki. I'll definitely agree with that. Speaking of Sasaki, when he was in UFC, he moved to New York City, along with Inoue, by the way, as well, and Mizuki Inoue. So they were relatively successful in their UFC careers. Probably out of those three, Sasaki the most.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they're back in Japan, though, well, Naoki and Sasaki are back in Japan. Mizuki is living with Aljamain Sterling. So
that's 10 years, 11, 12 years. The main issue for a Japanese fighter in the US was also enclosure. They was not adapted to fight in the cage because, as we know, the Japanese gyms are very small, and you don't have possibility to put the full-sized cage into the gym to this day. The only gym in Tokyo that has a big UFC-sized cage is Asakura Brothers gym. Mm-hmm. And moreover, there's a cage was a problem for Japanese fighters, and the rule set, because they was not they had problems with fight without elbows. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there was some some causes that there was not lots of successful Japanese fighters in the US.
Mm. Oh, so let's talk a little bit about his Rizin career. He actually joined Rizin when he was Pancreas champion. I believe he did eventually vacate the title. I think that's what most of the champions do, anyways. That they
Because it was because the one championship had a strong relationship with Pancras at the moment, so I think he had to do it.
I see, I see. So yeah, he came. I remember he kind of came in Rizin with quite a little bit of fanfare. They this was they had him speak. They had him they had him holding the Pancreas Championship. Code May Day also makes the point the lack of weight cutting. That is true. That at the time, Japanese fighters barely ever did any weight cuts. Now it's different. Now they're all doing weight cuts and getting sick at the weigh-ins, as we saw in Rizin recently, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so yeah, he came in with fanfare. He was he definitely had a following. That people were. I remember there was excitement to see him in Rizin, and I definitely think that Rizin was their view of him was that he was always going to be kind of never not a main eventer, but kind of like a co-main eventer. That makes sense. If
I think so. I think so.
And we can talk about his first fight in Rizin. Let me get the correct name up of the gentleman that he did.
You
fight.
mean that Russian?
Yes, that Russian guy. I forgot. I rewatched the fight. I should know this. Ahmed
Musakayev.
Busakayev, and what an interesting way to make a debut. By the way, this is also for the Rizin Bantamweight Grand Prix. So he's in the tournament and he's facing this. I think at the time he was undefeated. This guy, Ahmed Musakayev.
Yes, you are correct because he had a 5-0 record.
I mean, here's the thing. So if you saw this first fight, you probably would think that Ishiwatari was just like, listen, this guy isn't the most exciting fighter. He's just taking this guy down. He's just blocking all the Ahmed's takedowns. What do you think if you had a chance to see this fight, Daniel?
Yes, I think I even saw it live, not from Japan, but via stream, and yes, it was as you said, Ishiwatari out wrestled good wrestler. We have to say that most of Russians has really good wrestling skills, but from Ishiwatari it was another day in the office, and he beat the Musakayev and advanced to the next round.
I actually noticed something in almost all of his fights in Rizin. They all involve at least once, almost all of them. He got kicked below the belt at least once. I noticed this happened in all of his fights, but the Inoue fight and the Pecci fight. But all the other fights, he inadvertently got kicked in the balls. Just something just a weird thing I just noticed. Like poor guy. But yeah, and then next after that was the Pecci fight. That he fought next. No, excuse me. Yeah, it was Pecci. It was Pecci. That was that beautiful knockout that really showed, I think, what his knockout power as a fighter.
Yes, especially. Okay,
I
go
was
on.
gonna say because you were there when it happened. Can you just tell us what was the reaction to that knockout?
This was a normal reaction because as we know, the Japanese people the stands are very calm, but they're very knowledgeable, and they are just reacting to when there's some certain action. And the knockout is also this action when they are starting to shout and to be loud. So yes, it was very loud as I remember, and especially I would like to say it again. It was a heavy knockout. It was big punch, but the weaker punch of Ishiwatari because he knocked out Petshi by his right hand, but he is a southpaw.
I was also happy that he knocked out Petchy because he had a very, 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 very boring fight with the Korean fighter from Road FC, uh, in their match. And I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was, but this is the guy who somehow knocked out Kai Zakura.
Jehun Moon.
Jae-Hoo Moon, that's it. Yeah, Jae-Hoo Moon. And also somehow he got a bullshit decision victory, in my opinion, over Anthony Burchik as well. So yeah, so I was very happy that Kevin Pecci. It was great to see that knockout, especially with how Pecci fought the previous fights, and uh, him advancing made a very exciting tournament, Ishiwatari. And then after that, he fought a familiar face. It's so funny that like when we were previewing the Bantamweight Grand Prix this year, I we came to the conclusion. I think Takafumi Otsuka has fought for so long that he literally has fought almost everybody in the Bantamweight tournament that's going on right now. It's really funny.
Even in featherweight tournament because he was a participant in Dream 63 kilo Grand Prix in 2009.
Yeah, it's just so funny. It's so funny. That's Otsuka's career is basically, if you look at his record, it is like 20% rematches, and I just find that so funny that that's how long he's been fighting. What do you if you watch that, if you rewatch that Otsuka fight, the second Otsuka fight, I'll say, Daniel, any thoughts that like you came away from Ishitari's second match against him?
Could you repeat?
Oh, sorry. Any thoughts on the second rematch that the second match that Otsuka and Ishitari had, that was in the semifinals of the Grand Prix?
You know, overall it was a good fight, but from what I remember, Shintaro controlled the fight. He shown his good stand up and wrestling skills and advanced to the final.
Oh, that's
But it was a really interesting fight because there was a Deep Champ against Pancras Champ.
Yes, yeah. Oh, he hadn't vacated at the time.
I think he vacated his title after the tournament because I remember that I'm almost 100% sure, almost, that he walk out. What he had his walkout with a belt.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I rewatched it. It was kind of a boring fight. They kind of didn't. It was basically Ishitari controlling the fight for all 3 rounds. And the that's the thing. Otsuka, despite the fact that he's been finished, he's a very durable guy. He's a hard guy to finish. If and as the fight goes on, I think it actually favors somebody like Otsuka. He just has fought for so long that he's so used to the 3 rounds, 4 rounds, 5 rounds, whatever it be. So no surprise that he was able to survive this time.
Yeah.
Because in the first fight, like you said, it was a knockout win for Ishitari.
Yeah, but you know, Otsuka is a very hard guy, very durable, but sometimes he's hard to watch.
Oh yeah. Now another rematch happened again in the finals of that Bantamweight Grand Prix, where he faced off against Kyoji Horiguchi again. And it's unfortunate to say that you've kind of figured out like in the second match there would be. He unfortunately did not look as good as he did in the first match.
As I said before, there was totally different clash than their first time. It was on the ring. Horiguchi was in a totally different place of his career. He was much bigger than several years before, and the game plan of Ishiwatari was slightly different because he wanted to end it in by his stand-up skills. He wanted to win with his stand-up skills, by his stand-up skills, and he wanted to maintain distance and try to beat Horiguchi by single punches or short combos. But the Horiguchi was superstar, absolutely favorite of this tournament, and he was more, dynamic than in their first clash. He used the ring very good, the space, the smaller space of the ring, and it was a bit one-sided. Yes, definitely Ishiwatari shown his fighting spirit, lots of heart. He did not want to give up, but it was a bit one-sided, as I said.
Do you think there was any way that Ishitari could have won that fight?
I don't think so. Horiguchi was too fast for him. Uh, Maybe if Horiguchi had some luck, and he would try to utilize his wrestling, but in the ring it's much more difficult than in the cage, as we said in their first fight.
Also, it should be noted, so like by this time, so after this fight, Ishitari did not fight for almost 2 years, about a year and a half. He was dealing with a number of injuries. He had neck injury. I think he also had a back injury during this time. So that's why he was gone from 2017 to about mid 2019, and he did not fight. There was potential interest. Well, if you remember when Naoki Inoue, I think it was right after he defeated Trent Girdham. I think Ishitari was on commentary, and Inoue tried to made a challenge um to Ishitari. But I think Rizin was going to try to make that fight, but unfortunately, I think he was just plagued with so many injuries.
Yes, I think that
So
this.
basically, what you're
Oh,
saying is he was injury prone, right?
Not injury.
yeah,
Not
I
injury.
think
Sorry.
there
Go
was
ahead.
the main issue, one of the main issues why he ended his career, because he had a long break between Horiguchi and Ulka fight, and then he had another injury after the Ogikubo fight.
Oh yeah, well that that's let's talk about that Ogi Kubu fight because that is one of the most fantastic fights I ever seen. Daniel, what do you think about that fight? And also, did you think that Ogi Kubu won that fight?
It was really close. I can't tell you. I would like to just rewatch it and focus 100%. I would like to say that I was really lucky because there was my third time in Japan, and I saw this awesome fight live. And the reaction was something awesome, something I could not imagine even that I can see stuff like this. And the event was awesome as well. It was Rising 20 it was New Year's Eve 2019. So
That may have been the
this,
best show. That may have honestly been their
yeah,
best show to date.
I think so. And the fight with Ogi Kubo was one of the. Uh, I think it was the one of the best best fight in the show in the,
Chris, Christian,
in whole Rising
sorry.
history.
Christian, what do you think about this Okubo? I know we talked about when we recapped it, but yeah, what did you think about the Okubo Ishitari fight? Oh, Christian, are you there? Oh, but when he gets back, we'll I'll reiterate the question then. But yeah, no,
But
I
to the to the I don't know how to if it's in English, but I would like to underline it
yes.
that it was really really close.
So yeah, I rewatched this fight. It was still as amazing as it was the first time I watched it. I did think that Ogi Kubo edged out because I I felt that he was pushing the fight more, being the one who was pushing it forward, being more aggressive. And I think he just did it slightly more than Ishitari. I would not, if you said that this is not like a robbery or anything, if Ishitari won, I wouldn't have been upset or anything. It was so close, and I can definitely see a clear argument why he will. Listen, this is not a Gleason T-Bow Rory McDonald issue where these two, they basically, they put it all on the ring. I'm about to say the cage, all in the ring, and they, if that was the last fight the Ishitari had, that was the last fight the Ogikuba had. No, that would have been one heck of a fight to go out on, for both of them. Uh,
I'm not sure about Ogikubo. I don't remember, but I think that Ogikubo had to save the fight by his wrestling skills, as he did it in his previous fight against Motoya. But I can't remember right now.
Code Bay Day comes in. He's saying that his three favorite Ishitari fights: Horiguchi 1, Ogikubo, and the Korean Zombie fight. All good choices. All good choices. Um, Now I'm curious to know, Daniel, what did you think of his last fight against Naoki Inoue? First time Naoki Inoue's ever finished someone by some sort of TKO KO, and ironically soccer kick. Probably what you could say
Hmm.
was Ishitari's specialty. What do you think
Uh,
of that?
I would like to say that this was the disadvantage of the Ishiwatari as a fighter, because when he caught the Inoue, we saw it very very clearly that Inoue had some problems in the stand-up exchange. Uh, Ishiwatari wanted to finish him as soon as possible, and this was his problem, because he wanted to uh, knock the Inoue out, and he got caught, and there was the end of this fight. But this was not the first time when he acted like this, because in his fight against Korean Zombie it was similar thing.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, yeah, like I said before, shortly after that knockout during the Rise of Kvetch video, he said that he's not gonna. Yeah, it's time to hang it up. And throughout the video, I don't know if you had a chance to see the video, Daniel. But yeah, he was in the video. He was saying that like he was having trouble balancing while walking. He had said he had a headache.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of frightening, just hearing him talk about what it was like, getting the after effects of that, whether it be CTE or even a concussion. Sounds more like a concussion in my personal opinion, but it just sounded really scary what he was talking about, what he was dealing with.
What can I say more? I think, considering this, he made a good decision, probably.
Do you think I don't think he's gonna walk back on this, but we've seen it many times where someone says, "Oh, I'm retired," and then they fight another 5 or 10 years, or they go into another sport. Do you think I can't see someone like Ishitari doing something like that. I feel like that when
Mm,
he feels like when he says he's retired, he's gonna retire.
I think it's a bit like cultural contest. Do you remember the Japanese fighter who retires and then he is back?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I honestly can't think of any. I know in pro wrestling, uh once someone retires, well, actually I take that back. So the one person who I could think of who I think has like unofficial title is a Great Muta, Keiji Muto.
Yeah, yeah, I
Oh
know.
no, actually, oh, how can I forget it? Atsushi Onita from FMW has had like 5 retirements. So okay, the number is tiny. The number is very, very tiny in Japan. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's a thing of honor for them, I think, because for example, Masato could be back a couple of times and help some, I don't know, maybe K1, maybe Rising on New Year's Eve, but he did not it. He was not back. Oh yeah, he was not back, and we won't see Masato in the future fighting in a pro fight. So I think this is a cultural contest, and I can't see Ishiwatari back in the ring too.
I could foresee him doing a coaching. I feel like he would be a great coach for his team, the Cave team.
Yes, lots of fighters that we saw, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago in action turns out to be good coaches. For example, Miyata. For example, Hioki. He is a coach in Alive in Nagoya. So yes, this will be look like this more and more fighters will be coaches. Maybe not everyone, because some like Aoki wants to be more like a manager. But the future is also an interesting thing from this point of view.
Curious to know, were there was there any fights that you would say that you could think of that would have been interesting to see him have?
What do you mean?
So, like, is there like, I wish Ishitari could have fought this person before he was hurt.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is a good question. I would like to. Oh,
Either
he
in Rizin, Pancreas, UFC. Yeah, no, there's no limits. Like, who do you like? Like, if you want to say like, oh, him versus Dillashaw or something, if you thought that would be a great fight or any other
definitely.
fight.
Definitely the fights with an American fighters would be really interesting, especially in the ring under the Rizin rule set. But more realistically, if there's any match up in Japan to be made, I think there's no missing fighter that Ishiwatari fought with. I think he fought. Oh, maybe not with Yuki Motoya.
Did oh wait, they never had a fight. Ah, it's
Yeah,
interesting. I'm surprised that their paths never crossed in like the few times that he fought in deep. Yeah, that's interesting. Ah, that would have been an interesting fight. I would give the edge to Ishitara in that though. I think Ishitara would have won that. I would have, and I think he would
yeah, I
have
think
knocked
so.
out. I think he would have knocked out Motoya.
Yeah, I think that Ishiwatari is a more strong physically fighter. Motoya grew his stand-up skills, but he don't have any knockout power. He would be more efficient on the ground, but I don't see this fight, if this fight would go to the ground and go to the grappling war. No, I can't see it from what I wanted to say, that I would like to see Shiwatari with some more European bantamweights, for example, with some KSW fights. KSW fighters, but KSW has no interest to sending their fighters abroad, so there's no chance in the future also to see, for example, Racic or Przybysz in the Rising ring.
Can you just clarify that? Because I remember when that was announced, KSW just kind of said, "Oh, we're not going to work with Rise anymore," and they kind of like named them like specifically. And I was like, was there a reason why KSW just decided to do that? Because I thought they had an okay relationship. Was there something
Uh,
behind the scenes, or just was the whole Kleber thing part of it?
no, definitely not. Kleber has totally nothing with it, nothing common, because they released the Kleber because his contract was too expensive in comparing of his marketing value. So they did not want to give him more money, and they basically released him. Yeah. Couple months ago, the sports director of KSW said that if the pandemics will end, they will try to bring him once again. But I don't think that Rizin will release him from the contract, or won't. Mm, I don't know to say.
We'll take them back. We'll right that
I think
we'll
if even Kleber will fight in Poland in the future, will he will still have a good fight contract in Japan.
Gotcha.
Okay. About relationship between KSW and Rizin. Um, KSW decided to cooperate with Rizin because of the some kind of sentiment to the Pride Fighting Championships. Because KSW, the inspiration for KSW owners was a Pride.
Listen. The way that they have the orchestra and the entrances and just the atmosphere of pageantry, it is so Pride inspired. I can clearly see that.
Yes,
Basically, if it wasn't for Pride FC, there would be no KSW.
I don't
I
think
think so. I think so.
I think KSW would be around, but I think it wouldn't have the same. It would not be the KSW that it is with like all the with just like
all the pomp and circumstance.
Yeah.
The production value is important influence of Pride FC for KSW, but in the beginning, first couple years of KSW was in the ring, in the white ring, and with blue gloves. So this, you know why? Yes.
Yes. Even though I thought that they had to go to the cage.
Yeah. They could not go to the cage because of the television, because there was a wild times in Poland. I would like to say something quite interesting about the very old times in Poland, about the reception of MMA. In 2005, Paweł Nastula had his first fight in Pride, and the private TV station, private sports channel, broadcasted that Pride event live. I think it was in 2005. It was Critical Countdown, the second part of the Grand Prix, I think, or third. Maybe it was a third event, the final, the final part. And then,
Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt, even though it's
okay.
a thing, but didn't they also air like the fight with Paweł Nastula versus Josh Barnett?
Yes, but it's a totally different story, and it was not live, from what I remember. But it was totally different time zone, because the fight with Barnett was in the US, as we know. But this fight against Rogerio Nogueira was in Japan, and in Poland there was early hours on Sunday, something like between between 8 a.m. 7 a.m. to the 12 or 1 p.m. something like this. Yeah. And there was a huge complaint about what this channel was broadcasting, because in fact that event was really brutal. For example, there was a fight of Sakurabe against Arona. You watched it, so you know how it ended. And overall, the Pride rule set was famous because of the soccer kicks and stuff like this. So there was a huge complaint, and there was the first time and the last time when Japanese MMA was broadcasted live in my country, my beautiful country. Okay, I would like to finish the thing about relationship.
Go ahead.
They started because of the sentiment to the Pride, but in fact, they sent Goran Relic, who is a Croatian guy, not Polish guy, and they sent Shimon Bayer. Both guys went to the Japan and was not back in the KSW, so they realized the remaining fights in the contract with KSW in Japan in practice, and there was some quotes from the KSW guys, and they said that it's not profitable for them from the business point of view, so they sent the guys who was not valuable for them at the moment to the Grand Prix. And then there was also a question about the relationship. It was last year or maybe 1.5 years ago, when I don't even remember who was saying it, but he said that they sent the not valuable guys because everyone did the same, which was not true, because I can say that Bama wanted to send their champ. Bellator sent King Mo. Walid Ismail from Jungle Fight sent his 2-division champ. So it was kind of a bullshit, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I would just going back to the whole what he does after. I always like to say this: if and I think he could do well in quintet. If you ever decide to go to like a quintet and like be part of like a team, whatever, or do a super fight, I wouldn't mind seeing. I would love to see him do just pure grappling, jiu-jitsu. Colombier Bruno. Sorry, who are you referring to when you say Bruno?
I think he means Bruno Enrique Capelosa.
Oh, okay, Bruno
Capelosa, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Who, by the way, is kicking ass in PFL right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope, I don't know if he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna turn away from fighting entirely, unless he and his wife decide to. If anybody's watching the Rise of Confessions video, is he and his wife have a. Is it Shabu Shabu? No, that's not Shabu Shabu. He and his wife own a restaurant.
Yes.
So, hopefully he doesn't, he doesn't give up on the fight game entirely. Christian, I want to ask you as well. Now that you're back, what do you think of the Ogikubo Ishiwatari fight that happened at Rizin 20?
Oh, you want me to give you my thoughts about that fight?
Yeah, because I know we talked about it when the recap show happened, but I think we can probably all agree that's probably his best fight. One of his best fights. So I just want to get your thoughts on that fight, and if you thought he won in the end, or if you thought he lost.
Well, I can basically say that he, I can basically say that he and Okikubo had a hell of a fight. I just felt that when it came down to crunch time, Okikubo just had more in the tank. It's just the fact that, this was basically a fight picking winners. This was basically a fight pitting winners against each other, and I know that you, Andrew, don't really like that.
No, I like winners against winners. I don't like winners against
Oh,
losers. That's what I like.
right, right. But still, I think Ishiwatari could have had a lot more in the tank when it came down to this fight. Even though I think that, in my mind, I think his best fight was probably either against Kevin Petchy in the Rizin Grand Prix in 2017 or against Takafumi Otsuka. The two fights that he had with him at Deep Dream Impact in 2014 and at the 2017 Rizin Grand Prix show.
Mhm.
But as far as Ogi Kubo went, I mean, a lot of people did not know it was going to be the beginning of the end, but unfortunately, it was. And I think that Ishiwatari could have done more in that fight.
Gotcha, gotcha. So Daniel, I want to just ask, like, sum up your thoughts on Ishitari's career as a fighter, and as a, just not only so I know you cover MMA professionally, but also just as a fan of MMA. Where do you think Ishiwatari stands when it comes to the bantamweights, the entire bantamweight worldwide division?
You know, what I don't like to do, it's placing fighters, also my favorite fighters, in the rankings, because it's 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 not the numbers is not the main goal in this sport, especially if you don't watch only the UFC. If you are watching the UFC, the ranking are really um, important for you. But if you do watch and also cover the other promotions, you don't want to do it. Um, if I had to, I would like to say that Ishiwatari is in his top form, was in maybe top 20 of the world. To be fair, yes. But what I wanted to say, I feel that he was not very accomplished, because you asked Christian about his best fight, and I wanted to say that his two best fights overly, one of the two, one of the most entertaining fights was against Ogi Kubo and was against Nakahara. Really entertaining fights, but he lost that both fights. But he lost in a different way. He made his great fight, one of the greatest fights in his career, despite the losses. So it's a bit, I don't know what to say. He was
It's
not
a bit crazy.
he was not that complete as he could.
Okay, gotcha. We do. Kobe Day says that Ishitari was one of the staples of the JMMA dark era. Um, can you just clarify what you mean by the dark era? Are you talking? I'm just assuming you mean by post Pride era, where
Well, he would probably say around the Dream and Sengoku era, which would count as post Pride.
okay. Um,
Yes, I think the dark era of JMMA was absolutely after the collapse of Dream, when there was no really big promotion in the land of Rising Sun.
gotcha. Christian, sum up your thoughts on Ishitari as a fighter. As somebody who watched him in Rise, and just like what you think of what his importance to JMMA is to you.
Well, considering the fact that I've only seen his Rising fights and I've heard about him, fighting in deep, fighting in Pancrase, obviously against Jonathan Brookins, fighting Horiguchi twice, fighting Kao Uno, and all these other things. I mean, I can't really say much other than the fact that he sure as hell represented Pancrase well. But if you were to say to me, you know, should he be if there was an actual Japanese MMA Hall of Fame, would he be worthy of being in it? I think off of his accomplishments alone, being a bantamweight king of Pancrase champion, having all these amazing fights with some of the best stars in the world, despite losing, of course, and giving people somebody to tune into and enjoy watching, especially in his last 7 fights, all of which were in the Rizin ring. But, excuse me. I would say that he would be welcomed into the conversation of being, JMMA Hall of Fame worthy. It just sucks to me that he never got that opportunity to blossom himself outside of Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very. I just find it strange that he never fought outside Japan once, not even in Korea, Russia. It seems like everybody, many Japanese fighters, get the opportunity to at least fight in like Korea, even Russia. But he
or
just,
Russia.
I don't know. I don't know if he was just never offered, or if he turned down fights, or if there was some. It's just weird that he just never got any.
You know what, Andrew? Maybe there would have been some contract disputes. I mean, obviously, he was loyal to Shudo. He was loyal to Pancrase. He was loyal to obviously Rizin. But still, maybe there would have been some contract disputes when it came down to it at the end of the day, because for a guy who stayed close to Japan as much as he has throughout his entire career, considering the fact that all 39 of his bouts were in Japan, I mean, you would have to think there'd be some issues with contracts, right?
It's entirely possible. Well, listen, you gotta give him credit. Listen, he fought in Shuto, he fought in Pancrase, he fought in Deep Sengoku, Rizin. He fought in all the main promotions, obviously besides Pride, and he was just starting out his career in Pride. I don't think actually no, Pride didn't even have his weight division at the time, 135, if I remember correctly.
Well, they only fought 155 and up.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, unless he wanted to fight at 155, which I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to against some of those 155ers in Pride. He fought him basically almost the main promotions in Japan. So Okomede says that Ishitaro is tied for the most title defenses in Pancrase history with 6. That's another accolade that he has, right there.
So basically, what you can say is he's one of the greatest kings of Pancrase champions of all time.
Yeah, I guess of the new Pancrase era. And I think Daniel, you said it best that he's top 20. I would not call him. We have a saying in America: always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Never the bride.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily call him that, but he was always going to be, to me, he was a top guy who couldn't defeat the really top guys. There was always going to be people above him, whether it's a Kyoji Horiguchi, a Kaizakura. I think that there was always going to be people that were above him, but then you put him up with fighters that are below those guys. I think not 8 out of 10 chances he likely can defeat them, and we saw that with like Ogi Kubo. He almost beat Ogi Kubo. I think 5-6 years ago he would defeat a fighter like Naoki in a way. And I think, yeah, I just think, all the time came where just all this damage, all this injuries. That's why his career, that's why the fight with Inoue went the way it did. I'll always remember him as a fighter who put on exciting fights, he never coasted. And he was always trying to finish no matter what. And he loved to do soccer kicks. I love that in a fighter. I love that he would always try to do soccer kicks. When illegal.
Mhm.
Not the VTJ fight where it was like where they didn't allow soccer kicks. He almost went for it, but you remembered, oh shit, I can't do this now. It's interesting though, Christian. You bring up a Japanese Hall of Fame or like a JMMA Hall of Fame. I think that's what we gotta start asking now of whether he's JMMA Hall of Fame worthy. And in Ishutari's case, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, obviously, if there was a JMMA Hall of Fame, obviously it wouldn't be open to just foreigners. It would, I mean, it wouldn't be open to domestic talent like a Megumi Fujii or, oh shit, why did I have to say Fuji? It's Fuji. Megumi Fuji or Kazushi Sakuraba or even Tsuyoshi Kosaka. It would obviously be open to foreigners like Noguera Brothers, Josh Barnett,
Mm-hmm.
and Roxanne Modafferi.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I keep on forgetting that she fought in what was the promotion? Was it Deep Jewels that she fought in?
It was Deep Jewels and I think Smack Girl, but yeah, she's definitely a JMM. She's definitely a JMMA pioneer from the women's standpoint as far as foreign fighters,
Hmm.
especially being a women's MMA pioneer. But still, when you talk about a JMMA Hall of Fame and you talk about domestic talent that fought only in Japan, Shintaro Ishiwatari would definitely be in the conversation.
Yeah, I wonder. Do you think Ryzen will do like a ceremony or anything like that for him? I always thought they were going to do a ceremony of Crow Cop when he retired, but they never did. I'm surprised that they never did. So I can only guess that they're probably not going to do one for Ishiwatari, but it'd be cool if they did. Like make it like the
I mean,
first
we
one.
did a retrospective of Crow Cop, didn't we?
No, we were supposed to, but then the pandemic happened, and then other things. But like I'm surprised that I'm just saying that I was surprised that they never did one for Ryzen, never did one for Crow Cop. Um,
Well, hey, maybe with, I mean, I wouldn't say now because Japan is still obviously under COVID protocol,
mhm.
but when all of Japan opens back up to foreigners again, to international travel, maybe they should do something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Before we go, Daniel, before Christian does the sign offs, I want to give you an opportunity to plug everything and all the things you're doing right now.
Okay, so basically, I'm a video editor in the Eurosport, Polish Eurosport. I've started my also my commentary career. You are Americans, so you don't know how the kickboxing Eurosport broadcast was important for European people in the early zeros. But I grew up with Eurosport and then joined their broadcast teams, which was really big for me. And then I had to find a different place to make a commentary. So right now I'm basically a freelancer doing the commentary for the infusion shows, all infusion shows in Poland. Also sometimes for one championship, uh, for King of Kings, major European kickboxing league from Lithuania. Some Polish organizations coverage and commentary like as HFO. My friend Łukasz Czarnowski is a is a sports director. It's one of the Polish major kickboxing leagues and some regional circuit. From what I wanted to say, I'm covering kickboxing via madfight.pl, madfigat.pl. You won't understand a single word because in Polish basically, but we are covering lots of shows, and you can for example, find videos or results. I'm in a good relationships with kickboxing Z guy, so we are exchanging the infos and stuff like this. So I'm doing basically free things. I'm writing for I'm a chief editor of a kickboxing site. I'm doing the little video things for the Eurosport website, and I'm doing the commentary.
So basically, you're like, as we say here in the States, a 5-tool player.
Could you repeat?
You're basically like a 5-tool player, as we
Oh
say.
yeah. I can confirm it. So
also plug your social media and all that stuff, Daniel.
Okay, I would like to just to recommend to follow me. It's my name, my surname, and the first name of of the name. So Dziubicki. This is my account on Twitter. You can always try out my Instagram. This will be Daniel to I don't know how to say
underscore
two floors the D and double E and just to see from time to time my guest appearances in shows like today. So We Are Rising podcast and a couple other different.
And one more question we want to ask, or at least I want to ask, is let's just say a casual fan is listening to this. They don't have to be from Europe or anything like that. What would be the main thing you would say to somebody who's only a casual fight fan about a fighter like Shintaro Ishiwatari?
His fights are action-packed. He is well-rounded, and he uses a Japanese superior rule set, which is I do not using that kind of stuff in my professional things, but to the casual, I would like to say that he is kicking the people on the floor in his head.
I see. And Andrew, you got anything else to say before I wrap this shit up?
Yep. No, just yeah. I hope that people will check out Ishiwatari's fights on Rizin through their YouTube channel. All of his Rizin fights are there. If you have Fight Pass, you can basically see maybe about 8% of his fights through Shuto and Pancreas and all the Shuto offshoots because they're all on there. And yeah, I hope that I don't know if he's going to give up the fight game. I don't think he's going to entirely leave the fight game. I'm predicting he's going to become like a coach or something for Cave. We've interviewed him twice before, and he's somebody who I think you can put in front of fight fans. A lot of fight fans may not get. I think fight fans can get him who are not familiar with him. You can put an Ishiwatari fight in front of somebody who's only watched UFC, and they'll become a fan of him. I think he has. I think his importance. I hope his importance to JMA is not forgotten. When he came out and near the end of his career, and that's all I got to say about that.
Exactly. But other than that, and as far as his Sengoku fights, if you want to know where to get those, all you gotta do is tell a friend to tell a friend, as they say here in the States. But yeah, we just hope that when it comes down to Shintaro Ishiwatari's career, that it'll be worth mentioning like decades from now, in the hopes that people find out more about JMMA, because we hope that whatever Shintaro does in the future, we just hope that he can help JMMA grow. Right, Andrew? Right, Andrew?
Sorry, my thing on mute. Right, of course.
Okay. Other than that, it's been fun chatting with y'all, and I'm sure, Andrew, you probably want to do the plug so bad, but I'm going to do them anyways just to save you time. This has been another edition of the We Are Rising podcast, your source for all things about the Rising Fighting Federation and Japanese combat sports, or at times, like this one, at least in the case of most of the show, we tend to shoot the shit. You can follow us respectively on Twitter. Andrew is on Twitter at abenja1, ABENJA, the number one. I am on Twitter at ChrisGary92. You can follow me, and I'll be sure to follow you back. Just don't be surprised if I unfollow you because I already follow too many people. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at at DDZIUBICKI, right, Daniel?
Right.
And you can follow the show handle at We Are Rising Pod. That's WEARERIZINPOD, all in one word. And you can check out this podcast. For one, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, because you're watching this damn thing on the YouTube channel, and we would really like your support. But you can also check us out on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or your favorite podcast provider of choice where available. Other than that, for Daniel, Dziubicki, and Andrew Benjamin, I am the Chillmeister, Chris Gary, saying peace, my peoples, one love world, protect yourself at all times, and as the great Lenny Hart always likes to say, God damn it, I hate this shit. I'm sorry.
Christian, you should end by the Ishiwatari's workout music. I fall in love about
Good
his
point.
workout
Yeah,
music.
Hey,
It's great.
man.
let's do
Hey,
that.
man. Wonder post production. We always have to fix those screw ups in post production. You'll know that when it comes down to TV down the line, Daniel. But other than that, we'll talk to y'all on the next one. For everybody involved, we just like to say, peace, my people, one love world, protect yourself at all times. And that's the great Lenny Hart always likes to say. And I hope I don't fuck this up this time around. And with that, we out. Peace. Talk to y'all.